When my daughter-in-law changed the foundation's website and erased my name as founder, I didn't shout. I documented. The shock hit like cold rain, but discipline steadied my breath. That morning, I packed my evidence and drove to the boardroom myself. They had no idea justice was already in motion. The night air outside the gates of Greenwich was crisp enough to bite. The houses glowed like glass palaces, each driveway lined with black sedans. I parked at the end of the long street and told myself, "All right, Helen, shoulders back." Inside the house, the sound of jazz drifted from a Bose speaker, blending with laughter that didn't quite reach the eyes. Rosemary and butter filled the air. My name card sat near the end of the long mahogany table, far from the head. Camilla's name shimmered in gold ink at the center, next to my son Andrew's. I smoothed my dress and gave the server a polite smile when he said, "Welcome, ma'am." I had been welcomed into places like this before, never fully invited, but tolerated enough to fill a chair. Tonight, I promised myself I'd eat some pie, smile, and keep my dignity intact. The room sparkled with money. Conversations floated, real estate, markets, golf trips. Traffic on 95 was brutal, someone said. "You hear Whole Foods raised prices again?" Another chimed. I sat quiet, nodding when eyes brushed past me. Then Camilla appeared in white silk, perfume crisp and cold as champagne. "This is Andrew's mom," she announced to a group near the fireplace. "She's retired now." I caught the faint pause before retired. A server whispered an apology as he slid my missing name card holder into place. Andrew asked, "You good, Mom?" But didn't wait for the answer. His smile was the kind that belonged to his boardroom, not his mother. Wine glasses clinked, laughter rose, the chandeliers scattered gold across the table. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for my glass, age, maybe nerves, and the rim tipped. The red wine spilled in a single clean arc across Camilla's dress, gasps, then silence. The stains spread fast, like a wound blooming on silk. I stood frozen for a second before grabbing a napkin. "Let me get club soda," I said, voice steady. "That'll fix most things." But Camilla only looked at her dress, not me. Around the table, guests held their breaths, unsure which side to take. One whispered, "Oh no." Another pulled out a phone before pretending not to. Andrew rose sharply, face tight. "Mom, do you understand what you just did?" His words cracked the silence like glass. I could hear forks set down one by one. He didn't wait for my reply. His palm met my cheek before I realized what was happening. It wasn't hard enough to knock me back, but hard enough to hush the room. "Do you have any idea who's here?" he hissed. I could feel eyes on me, some pitying, some entertained. My cheek burned, but my voice didn't shake. "We can fix a dress, Andrew," I said quietly, "but breaking people never fixes anything." A neighbor coughed. Someone pretended to scroll through their phone. I placed my glass carefully on the table, aligning it with the edge, refusing to tremble. The noise in my chest was a steady hum, not of fear, but of resolve. When I finally turned toward the hall, I heard Camilla whisper to a friend, "She'll ruin even a celebration." That one sentence hurt more than the slap. It was the tone, rehearsed, dismissive. I whispered back, mostly to myself, "Well, bless your heart. The Southern code for 'I see your cruelty.'" I dabbed the wine from my hand, folded the napkin neatly, and left it beside my untouched plate. My heels clicked softly over the marble as I passed the foyer. The young server met my eyes again, uncertain, maybe sympathetic. I gave him a nod. "You did fine, son," I murmured. Outside, the cold night wrapped around me. The street was empty except for the rustle of dry leaves across stone. My old sedan coughed before the engine caught. In the mirror, the mansion's glow shrank behind me, the laughter muffled by distance. I touched my cheek, warm but steady, and took a breath. No tears. Just cold air and truth settling where pride lived. "I won't beg for a seat at a table I helped pay for," I said aloud. Then I saw it. Something small and silver rolling from the front door, glinting under the light. It stopped by my shoe. A USB drive. Camilla's initials engraved in cursive. I bent down, picked it up, and slipped it into my coat pocket. The house lights faded behind me as I pulled onto the main road, headlights sweeping across the quiet trees. I didn't know what was on that drive, but I knew one thing for certain. Truth had a funny way of leaving breadcrumbs. The highway home was nearly empty, just streaks of taillights fading into the cold Connecticut dark. I kept the window cracked, the air sharp enough to sting. "Easy now, Helen," I murmured, steadying my hands on the wheel. "Eyes up. Breathe." Each streetlight blinked across the windshield like a metronome. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 6. Breathing patterns from my nursing days. Club soda for stains, prayer for fools, silence for a room full of strangers. The line escaped my lips before I realized I'd said it. My building came into view, the porch light glowing like it promised peace. I parked, locked the car, and touched the side of my face. The welt had cooled, but not forgotten. Inside, I hung my coat, dropped my keys into the blue ceramic dish, and turned on the kettle. The simple noises, tick of the radiator, hum of the fridge, were enough to remind me I was home, still whole. I filled a towel with ice and pressed it gently to my cheek. "Nurse first, patient second," I whispered. My reflection in the kitchen window looked tired, not broken. I sat down with a yellow pad and began to write as if I were documenting a hospital incident. Time, witnesses, reactions, and who filmed. Keep records, keep truth, my old supervisor used to say. I texted my neighbor, "I'm fine, don't wait up," with a heart emoji, then turned the phone face down. Normal tasks became a bomb. Laundry into the dryer, dishes rinsed and lined neatly. "Order keeps the wolves out," Mama always said. I caught my face in the hallway mirror again and repeated the words I'd spoken at that table, this time to the right audience, me. We fixed dresses, not people by breaking them. The phone buzzed. Andrew. For a second, my thumb hovered over the green icon. I answered with my full name. "Helen Ward." "Not Mom." His tone was clipped, efficient. "Do you know the donors you embarrassed tonight? This could cost us." I could hear Camilla's voice faintly in the background. "You're measuring the wrong loss, son," I said. He continued, "Camilla says you've been jealous for years. Maybe staying away is best." The words were surgical, practiced. I could almost hear the boardroom echo behind him. "We will speak when respect is present," I replied. "Not before." I hung up before he could answer. Seconds later, a text arrived, cold as an invoice. "Going forward, no pop-ins, no pies, coordinate through Camila." I stared at it until the letters blurred, then took a photo for my records. No replies tonight. Silence would be my scalpel. On the table sat the small silver USB drive. I placed it on a paper towel like evidence and scribbled, 11/28 found outside event with my black Sharpie. The laptop whirred awake, its fan groaning like an old man's lungs. Folders appeared. Trans_reports_June. Confidential_accounts_Europe. Internal_fund_transfers. Private/email_threads. I clicked one. Numbers lined the screen. Millions shifted through accounts labeled Ward Pharmaceuticals Research Fund, SATET. The memo fields were sloppy, inconsistent. One PDF carried signatures. Camilla Ward, CFO, A. Ward, cosign. Only the font gave them away. The signatures printed, not signed. "If you're gonna lie," I muttered, "at least pick the right font." Then the emails appeared. "Once the shares are transferred, Velasa will merge quietly. Andrew doesn't need to know until it's done." I leaned back, heartbeat steady now, not racing. The bruise on my cheek pulsed in time with the facts. I wrote index cards like I used to train nurses. Findings, questions, actions on daily findings. Over $2 million transferred to Luxembourg. Questions, who authorized? Who benefits? Actions, backup. Print, secure. I copied files to my own drive, printed the first 10 pages, sealed them in a folder labeled Ward Truth Originals. My contact list had one name worth trusting, George Miller. My late husband's lawyer and old friend. I texted him, "Sorry for the hour. Legal matter, chain of custody." His call came before I could set the phone down. "Helen, if you say custody, I bring a safe," he said, his voice like gravel and wisdom. Bring nothing by email. 9 a.m. My office. I exhaled, relief tinged with fear. Documents that don't belong to me, I said. But the truth does. We discussed sealing procedures. Signature across the flap, time-stamped photo. I slid the envelope into my flower bin, same as my mother hid rent cash in Harlem. Trust is good, I murmured, locking the door. Locks are better. At the kitchen table, I wrote a single line in my notebook. I am not invisible in a house I helped pay for. Then I turned off every light except the one over the stove. My tea had gone cold, but I sipped it anyway. The bruise ached less now. My computer chimed. A new email flashed briefly before the screen dimmed. International Research Investments updated route. I didn't open it, just photographed the subject line with the timestamp. Logged it beside my other notes. Lord, I whispered, put steel in my kindness and brakes on my anger. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the radiator. I pulled the blanket to my chin, the silver USB resting on the nightstand beside my glasses. Outside, the city was still. The only light came from my computer, the subject line blinking again like a heartbeat. Updated route, as if the money itself were moving while I slept. I woke before sunrise, my body remembering duty before the alarm could sound. The bruise along my cheek had softened to a dusky bloom, the kind of mark you press once to remind yourself it's real. Coffee first, courage second. The apartment smelled of ground beans and faint detergent from last night's wash. On the table sat the sealed envelope, the Ziploc copy, and my index cards in careful order. Findings, questions, actions. I snapped a photo of the flap beside today's Hartford Current. Proof of date. Proof of control. I dressed in my navy blazer, pressed slacks, shoes low and sensible. If it comes to walking, I'll walk far, I told the mirror. The email inbox blinked, but I didn't open it. Don't feed a fire you're not ready to put out. Keys in purse, lights off, stairs instead of elevator, heart steady. George Miller's office sat in an old brick building that smelled of lemon polish and trust earned over decades. The receptionist nodded. The wall clock ticked like it took notes. George appeared, tie slightly crooked, smile genuine. Helen, he said, you look ready for trial. I set the envelope on the table. For the record, intake begins 9:07, he recited. Clicking on a small camera, my initials crossed the seal. He signed beneath them, then slid the chain of custody form toward me. No email, no cloud, eyes-only copies, his rule, my comfort. I unfolded my index cards. He chuckled. Only nurse I know who audits better than auditors. We learn to watch for patterns, I said. It's the difference between infection and recovery. He powered up an air-gapped workstation, the kind humming like an old refrigerator. We opened private/email_threads. Subject lines scrolled. Phase consolidation. Post-merger org. Share transfer. One chart mapped transactions against press announcements. Camilla's PR sense is almost impressive, I said. George leaned closer. Look here. 2 different signature templates, Andrew's initials in Arial. Hers in Garamond. I smiled grimly. If you're going to forge a nurse's note, at least match the pen. 2 fonts, 2 stories, he said. That's prima facie suspicious. We cross-checked spreadsheets. Every International Research Investments line mirrored an email date. I color-coded them instinctively. Yellow for movement, red for risk. The pattern pulsed clear as a heartbeat. Then came the deeper wound. George clicked open the state charity registry. The screen loaded slow, like it knew what it was about to show. Founder, Camilla Ward. Effective date, last month. My chest went tight. That's impossible, I whispered. He pulled a file from his cabinet. My original foundation documents from 10 years ago. Founder, Helen Ward, dated, notarized, clean. They didn't just move the money, I said. They moved my name. He printed both records, stapled them together, and shook his head. We can test this. Paper beats perfume. We drafted 2 letters, one to the Ward Foundation's council, one to Velassa's. George called them preservation letters, but to me they were battle hymns. They erased legacy before anyone noticed. I said quietly, not anymore. I stepped into the hall and called Andrew. He answered, Voice clipped. Son, I began, I have documents. Your name appears on papers you didn't sign. Your wife changed founder records. This is your warning. Silence. Then a sigh. The kind that meant disbelief or annoyance. Mom, please don't make this bigger. It's already big, I said. Respect is required for future calls. My attorney will contact counsel, that's all. I hung up before the conversation could decay into excuses. Nurses don't argue with fever. They treat it. As I waited for George to finalize the notarized packet, the office printer hummed out one last page, an event invitation forwarded from my email, Ward Foundation Winter Gala, honoring visionary founder. The gold lettering shimmered under fluorescent light. The name printed beneath wasn't mine. It used to be. I circled the date with his pen and smiled, just slightly. If they need a founder for the cameras, I said. I'll bring the paper for the lights. George looked up, a mix of pride and caution. You planning to attend? I met his eyes. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The RSVP link glowed on my phone like a dare. I pressed, attending. I baked a batch of oatmeal cookies for Sophie, the kind she liked with a hint of cinnamon. I packed them carefully in a silver tin, sliding in a note that said, Grandma loves you. Be brave, baby. Her handwriting used to appear on every fridge drawing, and I wanted her to know that love didn't vanish with signatures. I wrapped myself in the scarf she knit last Christmas, slipped on flats with a good tread, and tucked the sealed copy of my notes into my purse. Not to use, just to know I still had control. The drive to their gated community wound through rows of maples dressed in fading orange. I practiced lines under my breath. Just 5 minutes at the door. No drama. I'll be quick. My goal was simple. Test the human door before I moved on to legal ones. I parked by the gatehouse and whispered, Lord, put steel in my kindness. The intercom hissed before the guard's voice came through. Name and purpose? I answered clearly. Helen Ward. Here to drop cookies for my granddaughter, Sophie. He looked at his monitor, his tone shifting to corporate distance. You're not approved today, ma'am. I smiled lightly. Would you ring the house, please? I'll wait. He nodded, pressed the button, and waited longer than needed. His eyes flicked to me before he returned. Homeowner declines, he said, reading from a script. And I'm asked to remind you about the no-drop policy. My hand tightened around the cookie tin, but I kept my voice soft. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? I requested the denied entry log per HOA policy. He hesitated, then printed a slip when I quoted the rule from the posted sign. I accepted it like a receipt for dignity. Thank you, I said. Paper's cleaner than gossip. The inner door behind the gate swung open. Camilla stepped into view, latte in hand and white silk blouse glowing against the glass. She didn't look at me first. Her gaze landed on the tin. We don't do sugar on weekdays, she said, tone smooth as a press interview. I smiled faintly. Then consider it for the weekend. She moved closer, her eyes rehearsed. Please stop showing up unannounced. Coordinate through me. Andrew's very busy. I looked her squarely in the face. He's my son. She's my granddaughter. That won't be managed like a calendar. Her lips curved, brittle. You're embarrassing yourself. My fingers brushed the side of my phone, screen lighting but no recording. I didn't need proof of tone. I was collecting patterns. Humiliation wants a witness. I gave it a record instead. Through the glass. The foyer gleamed with new art. Where the family portrait once hung, my hand resting proudly on Andrew's shoulder, there now stretched a glossy canvas from the Foundation Gala. In gold script, Founding Vision, Camilla Ward. The air in my lungs turned cold. I pointed toward the wall. Sir, I said to the guard, keeping my tone calm, would you read that title for me? He leaned closer and did. Camilla noticed, and her smile brightened, a politician's grin. Brand alignment, she said, as if theft were strategy. I nodded slightly. Words are cheap. Paper costs more. I took out my small spiral and wrote 11:42 a.m. Foyer wall replaced. Founder Camilla Ward. No adjectives. Facts only. Facts endure longer than faces. I handed the guard a folded HOA policy printout. This is for your supervisor. You followed procedure. Then I snapped a photo of the visitor notice board and one wide shot of the vestibule. Reflection and all. Don't argue with a locked door, I murmured. Take the hinges next time. I placed the cookie tin on the brick ledge. Please timestamp this as refused by homeowner, I said. He nodded, uncertain. I walked back to my car, shoulders straight. My phone buzzed once. No call, just silence. I typed one text to Andrew. Came to drop cookies for Sophie. Declined at gate. I have the log. Your move. The road home shimmered with late afternoon light, the maples flickering like quiet applause. The denied entry slip lay on the seat beside me, paper proof of a wound neatly bandaged. My phone buzzed again. An email this time. Subject line glowing. Founder's remarks, draft attached. I didn't open it. I only saved it to the folder marked receipts. The tin of cookies sat unopened on the seat beside me. Still warm. I whispered toward the windshield, You moved my picture. I'll move your story. I began the morning with purpose, not peace. My kettle whistled while I typed what looked like an apology, but wasn't. Dear Camilla, I wrote. I regret any disruption and would like to arrange a brief handoff of Sophie's cookies at a neutral location, perhaps the cafe near Elm in Maine. Would 5 minutes work for you? The tone was sugar and sunlight, bang, but each word was placed like a chess piece. I copied George Miller on a separate thread marked Record Only. Then I printed the email and slipped it into my binder beneath a new tab, S9. Soft outreach, my mother used to say. You can't fix folks, but you can out-document them. I smiled at that and hit send, the hum of my printer sounding like applause. An hour later, the blowback landed. My phone buzzed with a foundation-wide email. Recent disruption by a disgruntled relative. Please direct media inquiries to our PR office. No name, just implication thick as mud. Minutes later came a legal letter. Subject line. Cease and desist. It accused me of misappropriating proprietary materials and threatened injunction. I laughed out loud, short and sharp. If you were right, I muttered. You wouldn't need all that perfume. I forwarded both to George with one line. Received, advise. Then I sat still. The weight of their fear disguised as power settling in the quiet. George called almost immediately. His tone had the steadiness of courtroom wood. We reply once, he said. Say, counsel engaged, preserve everything. Then nothing more. I typed exactly that. Copied him. Blind copied myself to my church project email. Off-site archive. My version of a safe deposit box. Then I began assembling the new packet, envelope photos, the log slip from the gate, my index cards, and the state filing where my founder title had been erased. Hole punch, tab, label, stack, the sound of control. Let them yell, I told myself. We'll do math. Not long after, the internet started to whisper. A lifestyle blog, one of those cheerful sites about philanthropy and fashion, posted an article that parroted the foundation's spin. Aging relative with a history of emotional outbursts disrupts family charity. I took screenshots of everything, headline, comments, and the Velocimed advertisement running right beneath it. I didn't post a rebuttal. I wrote a 2-line note for later. I am the original founder. Records are available to authorities. Then I sent a text to Clara Vaughn. When you're ready, I am too. She replied with a single checkmark emoji. That was enough, I whispered. Silence has weight. Make them lift it. By noon, my ATM card failed. The screen read, temporarily unavailable. See teller. Inside, a young banker leaned forward. Routine security review. Mrs. Ward. His voice trembled. I'm sorry. I asked who initiated it. When? And which accounts? He froze until I quoted his own customer rights brochure. He printed a tiny slip with minimal details. I wrote his name on the margin, dated it, and smiled kindly. Thank you. Son, paper's patient. Then I crossed the street to my credit union and withdrew a small cushion. My rule of survival. If they squeeze one hand, open the other. If you can't stop the river, I murmured, build a second well. When I got home, a certified envelope waited. The HOA from Andrew's neighborhood. Complaint filed for unauthorized attempt to access premises. They called it trespass. I stapled it beside my printed gate log. The timestamp proved otherwise. I wrote a brief response to their counsel. Firm, factual, respectful. I came with cookies, not conflict. I left with documentation, not drama. I copied George and laid the pages neatly across the table next to today's newspaper. Snapping photos as proof, anger wanted to boil. But I kept it on simmer. Control is a better flavor. By dusk, I called the bank's regional ombuds, logged the call times, and scheduled a meeting for the next morning, with George by my side. "We'll bring sunlight," I said aloud. Then I texted Andrew. "My account was frozen. If you know why, this is your chance to fix it." I didn't wait for an answer. Instead, I made gumbo. Onions, okra, rhythm. Cooking steadies a woman when the world won't. I filled 2 containers for my neighbor who checks in daily. Routine is armor. The phone rang again. Unknown number. A bright robotic voice chirped. "This is a wellness check line. Someone expressed concern about your stability." I sat straight, took a breath. "May I have your badge and case number?" I wrote it neatly on the pad beside me. Then I looked toward the door, calm and ready. "Someone thinks an old woman will panic," I said into the empty room. "Let them—" A soft knock followed. 2 officers for a wellness check. I opened the binder on my table. Page marked in blue, S9, S10. 2 officers stood in my doorway, polite but watchful. I kept my voice steady, my hands visible. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," I said, pointing to the binder open on my kitchen table, tabs marked S9, S10. They took in the labels, the organized pages, the time-stamped photos. I gave them my ID, offered tea, because old habits matter, and spoke in plain sentences. No threats, no instability, just documentation. I showed the denied entry slip, the counsel letter, the photos. One nodded, the other softened. "Ma'am, you're fine," the taller one said, jotting something on his pad. I smiled, small and controlled. "I'm a retired nurse," I told him. "I know how to chart, and I know when a pulse is lying." They left their card. I photographed it beside the morning paper and texted George. Clear. Ready for board. His reply came fast. Room booked, counsel present. The foundation's glass doors reflected winter light sharp as mirrors. Each donor plaque along the hall bore a name that had once been tied to mine. George walked beside me. Quiet confidence in every step. Inside the conference room sat Camilla with her lawyer. Andrew tight-jawed beside her. The PR director, 2 board members, and the corporate secretary. I chose the seat against the back wall. Habit from years in ER. Keep the exits in sight. The chair called the meeting to order. "Emergency session under bylaw 4.2, he read. Recorders clicked on. I folded my hands. "I'm here," I said, "to restore the truth with paper, not opinions." George began sliding labeled exhibits across the table. E1 through E15, each stapled, numbered, time-stamped. The PR man started to speak of family misunderstandings. The chair cut him off. "We're dealing in evidence today." Exhibit E3 was the first crack. It showed an email thread titled Phase Consolidation, a Velasa integration timeline. I pointed at the chart's color-coded rows. "Intake, onset, escalation," I said evenly. "Same pattern we use to chart infections, only this one's financial." George highlighted the mismatched signatures. Andrew Ward's name in 2 fonts. The secretary leaned closer, paling. "If a nurse logged vitals in 2 inks within 1 minute," I said, "you'd ask why, so ask it here." Camilla's counsel called it sampling error. The chair arched a brow. George produced the next exhibit, state filings. Camilla Ward listed as founder. My archival print. Founder, Helen Ward. 10 years of continuity. I laid down the original receipt with the matching barcode. Facts don't shout. They stand still and let people come to them. Then came the voice. Clara Vaughn joined via video. No camera, only sound. She read from a sworn statement. Directives from Camilla herself. Reclassify transfers as research reinvestment. Q founder change before gala. She named the IT staffer who performed the portal edit. Ticket number and timestamp provided. George laid the screenshots side by side. Andrew's pen stopped tapping. Camilla blinked twice, trying to find footing. PR tried to interrupt. The chair's voice cut clean. This is evidence, not optics. Exhibit E10 played next. An audio file, lawful and logged. Camilla's voice, unmistakable. Replace her name. Keep optics clean for donors. Silence filled the room like fog. I didn't raise my voice. Erasing a woman's work, I said. Isn't branding, it's theft. Camilla lunged for denial. That's doctored, George countered. Checksum verified. Access tied to her credentials. I looked at her calmly. If it isn't your voice, who keeps using your key card? Andrew whispered. Camilla! Not as accusation, but as heartbreak. The next exhibit made even the chair exhale. The bank's internal log showed a security review placed on my account 22 minutes after an email from the foundation CFO citing elder vulnerability. I said, I'm vulnerable to exactly one thing, lies. No one laughed. The lawyer rubbed his temples. George handed over the teller slip and my photo log. The timestamps aligned perfectly. This, the chair said, is retaliatory exposure. I answered. Exposure is how you disinfect. When the votes came, they moved fast. Suspend Camilla as CFO, reinstate Helen Ward as founder, notify state regulators and lock administrative systems. Hands rose, unanimous. It reset passwords before the meeting even adjourned. I sat still, heart quiet, eyes on Andrew. You can walk home with truth, I said softly, or with PR. He didn't respond, but he didn't look away either. As we stepped into the lobby, 2 agents passed the receptionist, badges flashing, movements controlled. Someone whispered, Ma'am, we'll need Miss Ward to come with us. I closed my binder, tucked a stray silver strand behind my ear, and stood aside. Andrew reached for my sleeve. Mom, he said, voice breaking for the first time. What do I do now? I woke to the hiss of the kettle and the chatter of news anchors. The ticker scrolled faster than my eyes could follow. Foundation CFO suspended. AG opens inquiry. Founder. Record dispute. I whispered to no one. Coffee first. Chaos second. The binder lay on the table. Tabs marked S11 and S12 like surgical instruments laid out before a long day. George had already texted. Preservation orders confirmed. Systems locked. Clara Vaughn pinged. Paper moving fast. Expect arraignment schedule. I answered with a simple understood. I stretched, my shoulders tight from yesterday's hours under fluorescent light, and said my short prayer for steadiness, the kind old nurses use before a double shift. Winning, I decided, wasn't about triumph. It was about restoring order. By mid-morning, the phone buzzed again. A state AG bulletin, black and white. Camilla Ward charged under Section 53A for financial fraud. Arraignment set for next Thursday at 10. I cross-checked with Clara. She confirmed, voice thin with exhaustion, but satisfaction too. News sites lit up. Photos of the foundation doors. Donors outside giving careful sound bites. We love the programs. We want transparency. My own words. If asked, we're ready. I just want truth kept, work funded, and the books clean. An email from donor relations followed, apologizing for calling me a disgruntled relative. They attached a retraction draft. I red-penned the fluff and wrote in the margin, keep it plain, keep it public. Touching the folder spine, I said quietly, paper heals. It doesn't hug, but it holds. At the bank, the lobby smelled of toner and citrus cleaner. George met me by the brochures. The teller greeted me too brightly, the way people do when they've seen headlines. The manager ushered us into a glass office and offered coffee we didn't take. I asked for the internal memo that froze my account. He cited policy. George quoted statute. The manager blinked twice, printed a summary, and apologized. The timestamp matched the CFO's email, 22 minutes apart. We left with my funds restored, fees reversed, and a written apology. Please date and initial, I reminded him. And he did. Relief came not as joy, but as breath unclenched. I bought 2 money orders on the way home. One for the church pantry. One tucked into a scholarship envelope marked Sophie. Small acts steadied the air. Just past noon. Andrew texted, need to say this in person. I replied, use your words in daylight. We met at the park by the river, where geese strutted like they owned the bank. He looked older, unshaven, eyes red. "I resigned," he said. "Effective noon. Statement posts at 1. I kept my tone even. Say the right thing the right way." He swallowed. "You were the founder. You were targeted. I let image run my conscience." He handed me his draft. It named the truth, my founding role, his failure to act, his public apology for the slap that started it all, his support for the investigation. I crossed out the corporate padding and added one line: "No mother should have to document her love to be believed." He read it aloud, voice shaking, then pressed post. We sat in silence, watching ducks cut silver lines across the river. Forgiveness wasn't a speech. It was how you kept breathing beside the person who broke you. That afternoon, I stopped at the community center. The director waved me into a small classroom of women my age, soft sweaters, steady eyes. "Tell us what to do if it happens to us," one said. I smiled. "Start with a notebook. Write dates. Don't argue with the loudest person. Argue with the paper." We talked about free notary days, state hotlines, and why to keep receipts. A veteran slid over a manila folder. Her son had forged her car title. We wrote her next 3 calls on a Post-it. When I left, the hugs were warm but not clinging. Peppermint breath, wool fuzz, quiet strength. Evening came with a pale sky. My apartment hummed low. The binder sat open. Unthreatening now. I slid Andrew's statement behind tab S12. One day, Sophie will read it and know where her family stopped lying. My back ached. I placed the heating pad, sipped chamomile, and listed gratitude like vital signs. Roof, breath, steady hands. The voicemail light blinked, a distorted voice. "Drop it or else." I added it to the log, emailed it to George, and went on folding laundry. Fear had lost its grip. Later, a court alert pinged. Camilla's arraignment confirmed. Beneath it, a new message arrived. Subject line foundation _minutes _2015. Original, no sender name. I didn't open it. I copied it to a fresh thumb drive, labeled it S13, and slid it beneath the binder cover, to the dark room. I whispered the old nurse's mantra: "Morning is for hard reading." I switched off the lamp. The metal rings of the binder caught the moonlight. One brief flash, steady, like a lighthouse telling me exactly where to aim. Dawn came soft, pale through my kitchen blinds. I brewed coffee and slipped on my arthritis gloves. Steady hands, steady mind, I told myself. The binder sat open under the lamp, silver rings catching light like truth waiting to speak. I opened the encrypted PDF from last night, 2015 board minutes, original. It held a notarized founder letter naming me contingency steward in the event of malfeasance. My eyes burned, not from tears, but from relief measured in years. Clerk signature, timestamp, chain of custody. Perfect. I snapped photos from my log. Then I called George Miller at 6:45 a.m. "Bring a clean drive and the portable scanner." His reply was immediate. "On my way," I whispered. "Paper doesn't love you, but it will stand up for you." George arrived with a travel mug and tired smile. We reviewed the clause. He nodded. "It's enforceable. Helen ironclad." We drafted a 1-page resolution invoking contingency authority. I texted Clara. "Minutes recovered. Clause verified." She responded. "Confirming with clerk's book," I reminded her. "Ask for the book, not the copy. Originals live in the book." Then I folded the document into a red folder labeled "Today," my late husband used to say. "Justice delayed is still justice delivered if you live long enough." I looked up at his photo. "John, I've got it." Purpose steadied my pulse like a metronome. By 9:30, I was seated 3 rows back in the courthouse. Camilla walked in, chin high, wrists tight inside her blazer sleeves. The charges were read, each syllable landing heavy. The judge invited brief remarks. I stood, voice low, plain. "I'm here to keep the work funded and the books honest. That's it." The judge nodded. No dramatics, no pity. Andrew glanced back once. Just a nod, nothing more. I handed the clerk a sealed envelope containing the original minutes and chain log. "For record," I said. "Small words, heavy weight. At noon." We entered the Foundation's boardroom again. The air carried the sterile chill of glass walls and reputations cracked open. I laid the binder flat. "We will proceed under the Founder Contingency Clause," I said. George read the section aloud. Silence filled the room like gravity. The chair called for motions. Reinstate me as temporary founder steward. Suspend conflicted authority. Authorize forensic audit. Initiate donor correction letter. Hands raised in unison. I signed the stewardship resolution. Pens scratched like crickets in a summer field. "Let's do this by the book and before lunch," I said. And for once, people laughed softly, the kind of laugh that meant respect. By 2, the first restitution wire cleared. I directed it to the clinic scholarship fund named after John Ward. I filed a no-contact order, scheduled security for court days, then called donor relations. "Put my name back where the work began," I said. "Keep the font small and the numbers big." Before hanging up, I left a note for viewers my age. Keep a red folder, copies, contacts, timeline. Memory fades. Ink doesn't. The tone wasn't bitter. It was boundary wrapped in grace. Late afternoon. Andrew went live. "My mother founded this foundation," he said clearly. "She was erased. That ends today." He acknowledged the slap, called it wrong, thanked the investigators. My reply to reporters was one sentence. "Accountability is love in work clothes." That night. I gave Sophie the first scholarship envelope. "This is how we say sorry and mean it." I told her. She hugged me quick and true. At dusk, I pinned the recovered minutes inside the binder under a new tab S15, the rewrite. Then I recorded a short message for elders online. When they erase you, write yourself back. Legally, cleanly, finally. My final words to the camera were steady. I didn't burn the house down. I rewired it. Just as I reached to turn off the lamp, the phone rang, clerk's voice calm. "Mrs. Ward?" Another envelope surfaced, dated 2014. "You'll want to see this tomorrow morning." The courthouse lights dimmed behind me, but my phone buzzed again. Envelope 2014, signed by J.W. My late husband's initials. My breath caught. Had he known something all along? I turned toward the morning sun. The binder clutched close. Whatever was inside that envelope might rewrite more than the foundation.